All right, Fact Check This Podcast, episode 33, and today we go through the Joe Biden cabinet and why they are terrible. Number one, I'm just going to start this off like as a all-encompassing, broad spectrum, talking about every single one of them very quickly. Every single one of Joe Biden's cabinet members is, except for like one, I think. The Secretary of Transportation. No, not Transportation. Buttigieg, and then another lady that's of Native American descent. She's only been in politics since 2018, and then Buttigieg is he's pretty young, so he hadn't been around for all that long either. But every single one of the rest of them are they're Obama retreads, and when they were retreads in Obama's administration, they were actually retreads from the Clinton administration. All of these people have been around since the Clinton administration. So for anybody that was hoping for change or a new regime or anything different than what you've had for the last 30 years, it's not happening with the Biden administration, which, I mean, we all knew that anyway. But so we'll start at the top. We'll go with the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. So Anthony Blinken, he's been around since Clinton. He's been in multiple different positions within the Democratic Party for all of the different administrations, Clinton and Obama. But here's the fun thing about old Blinken. He was also very active during the Bush administration. He's one of those that crosses party lines because he does one thing really well that both the Democrats and the Republicans really like, and that is be a war hawk. He's been largely involved in basically all of the wars in Iraq. Like every Iraq war, he's been a huge proponent of that. So that's your Secretary of State, the guy who's going to be in charge of making foreign policy and stuff like that. Giant war hawk. So, we're off to a great start. And then the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he is a career war hawk. I mean, he is a former general. That is literally what his job was to be a war hawk. And by all accounts, he was absolutely great at it. But then not only that, he has been on the Raytheon board for the last 4 or 5 years and has huge investments in Raytheon. He's become a multi-millionaire from that involvement. And Raytheon, if you're not aware, is a huge military contractor. He's also on the boards of Nucor and Tenet Health. So he is pretty heavily invested in all of the avenues that continuing to be a war hawk would be profitable for. He also has an investment firm that has Anthony Blinken as one of his investors that they work with. So he is heavily involved with everything that would make a profit from continuing these unending wars and just driving the military-industrial complex forward. And of course, he's in bed with Anthony Blinken with his investment firm to another guy who has made bukus of money off of the unending wars and is in the Secretary of State, so he gets to have influence over that as well. If that shit doesn't rub you the wrong way, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I can't stop laughing about this because it is a giant joke. It's just this huge joke. For all the talk about, they acted like Trump's hotels were some huge conflict of interest. That's minimal at best. These are people who literally sit on the board of weapons manufacturers and companies that directly benefit from the unending wars and have been directly tied into those wars for literally 30 years. And that's like, no, that does, nobody bats an eye at that shit. Like, it's just insane to me. So then you got Janet Yellen, who's going to be the Secretary of the Treasury, and her big stamp of approval for this is because she was the former chair of the Federal Reserve. So she is 100% pro inflation, pro just printing money and throwing it out there. Like, if she has her way with the Treasury and with the way the Federal Reserve operates and the way we handle the monetary policy in this country, your dollar bills will be not even worth the paper that they're printed on. Like, it's insane, the inflation rate that we're going to experience and the complete and total collapse of the dollar that's going to come very quickly. Like, there's no, at this point, with the way they've treated all of this, there's no backing it up. There's no correcting it. There's nothing that can be done to fix the problem. So now we just have to sit around and honestly, I'm happy. I'm happy to have Janet Yellen as the Secretary of the Treasury. I hope they go ahead and they blow this fucking thing up as quickly as they can, because that's the only way that anything is going to get fixed. Is it has to finally completely blow up and be replaced. So I'm all for it. Like, it's as terrible as it's going to be for every one of us. At least any of us who have anything invested in terms of the stock markets and just actual dollar bills. It's gonna suck. But with that being said, it's got to come to an end at some point, and the only way it's ever going to end is for it to just blow up and end and die, and then we get to start over again. So Janet Yellen might be a great pick for that, because I think she will absolutely throw this thing into high gear and just run it right off the edge of that cliff. So moving on, we've got Jennifer Granholm, who is the Secretary of Energy. She sat on the board for Dow Chemical, and she was also on the Proterra board very recently for both of those, actually. She was a huge proponent of bailouts for the automotive industry and everything. She is going to push forward energy policies that, like what you've seen over the past week with the Keystone Pipeline being shut down. Like, she's going to push forward energy policies that are going to destroy jobs, that are going to actually create. So it's going to be what are viewed as environmentally friendly energy policies, but in fact, and in actuality, the solar farms and the wind farms, like, those are horribly inefficient, and the waste that they create and the space that they require, they actually do the exact opposite of what they're intended to do. Like, they may be low for emissions purposes, but in literally every other way, they are abso-fucking-lutely terrible. And it creates. Well, the problem that we have is, even if you did away with all emissions, 100% of emissions were completely done away with right now, it doesn't change anything. Nothing changes. So, especially for the U.S., because India, China, Russia, like, none of these countries are going to get on board with that. And they're the ones that you have to get on board with it, otherwise it just doesn't matter. And they're not going to. And even if they did, even if all of them did, even if we went like zero emissions the world over, it still doesn't change anything for the next 1,000 years, 1,200 years, something like that. Like, so it doesn't make any difference. And the difference that it does make is minimal at best. So it's basically pointless. And they're going to push forward these types of policies. She, in particular, is going to push forward these types of policies that are actually economy-killing, job-killing, inefficient, just terrible, terrible policies in every way that they could be, but because it's in the name of the environment, then they're allowed to get away with it, and that's insane. Like I don't understand how I don't understand how people can get behind this stuff. Like I do understand how people get behind it. People are genuinely uneducated and don't know dick shit about anything that's going on in the world right now, and everybody gets their news from fucking CNN, and so nobody's educated, and that's a shame. The Secretary of Education, speaking of educated, he's actually Miguel Cardona. He was, I believe he was in charge of education in the state of Connecticut. And he has actually been panned by the teachers' unions because he wasn't actually a teacher. He was an administrator. And they don't have a whole lot of hope or faith in him being a very good Secretary of Education. I looked at some of the stuff that he had done in the state of Connecticut, and most of his big accomplishments were changing the way things were calculated in terms of looking at how school systems are graded and stuff like that, and trying to fix that. He's not necessarily terrible. I don't know. I don't know. He doesn't have enough of a track record to really move the needle as far as I'm concerned. The fact that the teachers unions don't like him actually makes me like him a little bit more, if I'm being totally honest. Let's see. Then we've got Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the director for the Department of Homeland Security. So the big knock on him is that he had intervened to under the Obama administration to help people get visas that would be beneficial to Democratic backers and Democratic investors. So and that's not like rumored. There was actually an investigation into it that found that he legitimately did that. So obviously he's not totally above board. Like there's some shady shit involved with him. And if I remember correctly, he is also the one, like for all of his work on DACA and everything, he is also the one who was like a huge proponent in building the cages that the left has been screaming about the Trump administration for over the last 4 years. Like during the Obama administration, Mayorkas was the one who had that plan. I'm almost 100% positive. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but I'm pretty sure that was him. So yeah, that's a solid pick there for your Department of Homeland Security with for the party that's supposed to be in favor of more open borders and getting rid of the cages. Yeah, put the guy in charge of Homeland Security that actually built the cages under the Obama-Biden administration. That's going to work out real well. I didn't have a whole lot to say about a lot of the other ones. Let's see. The Attorney General is Merrick Garland. Actually, I don't have any problem with Merrick Garland whatsoever. Like the only reason he wasn't he didn't get a Supreme Court conferment was because the Republicans decided to flex their muscles and not let him have it. And I don't have a problem with them doing that. That was their prerogative at the time. There's nothing wrong with Merrick Garland. He wasn't necessarily a bad pick for a Supreme Court justice, and he would have sided with the other liberals every time. So that's the only reason that they didn't let him go through. Even the Republican senators, for the most part, said that he was a good pick, but they weren't going to confirm him because Obama was on the way out. So I don't have a whole lot of problem with him. The only other one I really want is John Kerry is the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, which is a completely fictional, made-up position that they gave to John fucking Kerry, who's been around literally forever. Like he might be as old as Joe Biden and has been around for every bit as long. It's like in a made-up position as the envoy for climate. Like, who is John Kerry, and what is he at this point? Like, was he still in government other than just being a Democrat that's like got a big name? And the fact that they have these made-up positions like this is something that really pisses me off, because it just shows how government is situated and positioned. All government is going to do is make itself bigger and keep adding things that it doesn't need. Like special presidential envoy for climate. I'm pretty sure that would be wrapped up under literally anything else. The Secretary of Energy, something like anything else would probably already encompass that. Like, there's no reason to create a paid position for a lifetime bureaucrat who's already a multi-millionaire just to stay in Washington and continue the jerk-off fest that they've got going on. Like, everything about the way our government is designed is a joke. It's only designed to make itself bigger, make itself more powerful, and make itself more of a hindrance on average Americans. And that's exactly what it's doing. And that's all I really got. If you got questions about any of the other picks, like the Secretary of Agriculture, it's hard to mess that up. And even if they did, like, there's not his because agriculture is so global, he would have to really be just actively trying to fuck that up. So, like, and a lot of the other positions, I mean, a lot of the other positions are just it's more made up stuff that doesn't really matter. That should probably be encompassed in one of these other positions anyway. And that's somebody that's probably not even going to do the job anyway. They're going to have a staff that takes care of all of it for them, and they're just going to sit around and rubber stamp shit. So, yeah, the whole thing is just dumb. And I'm going to cut it at that. There won't be a second part for this today. It'll just be this. And I hope everybody has a good week. I'll be back probably Wednesday for another episode. And in the meantime, hope everybody has a good one. Later.